You know the sound of $1 billion holding its breath? It is a low, electric hum, like a hive of mechanical bees vibrating in a refrigerator. That has been the soundtrack of my life. I am standing in aisle 4 of the main server hall, listening to the cooling fans fight a Texas thunderstorm that is trying to rip the roof off this concrete warehouse. Outside, the sky is a bruised purple color, the exact shade that means a tornado might touch down just to ruin my afternoon. Inside, it is a steady 68 degrees and smells of ozone, floor wax, and the damp air drifting from the loading docks. My name is Walter Hastings. I am 58 years old, and for the last 15 years, I have been the only reason this data center has not gone dark. Officially, my title is Operations Manager. Unofficially, I am the guy who crawls into the subfloor when the generators start coughing up black smoke at 3 a.m. I built this place, not with money, but with sweat and missed family dinners. 15 years ago, it was a concrete box filled with rat droppings and outdated servers. When the big blackout hit years ago, the owner, Donald Beck, was in Cancun. I spent 3 days sleeping on a cot, manually feeding the backup generators diesel with a funnel. I saved the data. I saved the contracts. When the power returned, the county realized we were the only facility that stayed online. That was when the big contracts rolled in: the regional hospital network, the county 911 dispatch, the safety monitoring systems for the chemical refinery down the road. I knew every cable and every rattle in the cooling units. I was the load-bearing wall of Apex Data Solutions. On this morning, I walked past the compliance wall near the entrance. Framed in cheap plastic were our state operating licenses and federal safety certifications. If you look closely, you would see one name typed in the responsible operator field: Walter Hastings, license TX 77402. In the eyes of the state of Texas and the insurance underwriters, I am this facility. If it catches fire, the fire marshal calls me, not Donald. If the 911 system goes down, the subpoena comes to my house. But Donald Beck had called an all-hands meeting for 10 a.m. Donald was a man whose entire personality resembled a golf pro shop discount rack. He only showed up to show off his new truck or complain about the electricity bill. My lead tech, Daniel, walked up to me. Daniel had tattoos up to his neck and looked like a bass player in a heavy metal band, but he could splice fiber optic cable faster than a spider spins a web. "The boss is here," Daniel said, and he brought the prince. The prince was our nickname for Julian, Donald's son. Julian had been away at college for 6 years, earning a 4-year business degree. Last time I saw him, he was 19 and trying to mine Bitcoin on a critical medical server, which I had to unplug before he crashed the hospital database. Daniel grimaced. He is wearing a corporate fleece vest and loafers with no socks. I sighed and walked toward the conference room, my steel-toed boots clacking against the raised floor tiles. I patted the side of a server rack as I passed. A habit like scratching a dog. Keep running. Inside the conference room, Donald was sitting at the head of the table, grinning. Next to him sat Julian, scrolling on his phone, smelling of expensive cologne and unearned confidence. Daniel and Clara from billing sat down, looking nervous. Donald clapped a hand on Julian's shoulder. Julian has finished his MBA and he is ready to take the reins. He is going to take Apex Data Solutions into the future. Julian looked at me. Optimization, Walter. Synergy. We are sitting on legacy infrastructure that needs to be disrupted. I crossed my arms. We host the county 911 system, Julian. We do not disrupt. We sustain. I am the concrete foundation keeping this place upright. Julian condescendingly chuckled. That is utility thinking. We need platform thinking. Donald jumped in. To help Julian execute his vision, we are making structural changes. Julian is taking over as Director of Operations, effective immediately. The room went silent. We are moving you to a new role, Walter, Donald added quickly. Senior Compliance Archivist. You will handle the paperwork, the documentation, and organize the files. Make sure the audits look pretty. He was putting me out to pasture, taking the keys to the engine room and handing me a coloring book. You want me to file papers? I asked. Julian smiled. Data governance is huge. Plus, we need you to document your tribal knowledge so we can scale tribal knowledge. That was corporate speak for stealing my expertise before firing me. I looked at Donald, 15 years. I had missed family milestones, spent holidays in the subfloor, and saved his business. Now I was being shoved into a corner. I felt something crack inside me. It was quiet like a shear pin snapping deep in a machine. "Okay," I said. Donald blinked. "Okay, okay," I repeated, forcing a smile. "If that is the direction you want to go, I will handle the paperwork." Donald slapped the table, relieved. Julian checked his watch. "Great, I have a lunch meeting. Email me a summary of what you do all day. Keep it brief, bullet points." I looked at the storm outside. I looked at the compliance wall where my license was the only thing protecting them. "Sure, Julian," I said. "I will get right on the paperwork." I was going to do exactly what they asked, every single page, and when I was done, they were going to wish I had just burned the building down. My new office turned out to be a converted storage closet near the loading dock. It had no window, a ventilation grate that rattled constantly and smelled of diesel exhaust from the delivery trucks. My desk was a plastic folding table, and my chair was a stained fabric seat that had seen better decades. I sat there listening to the muffled hum of the data center through the wall. I could feel the vibration in the floor. It was like watching a stranger set up a disaster in your own home. The HR representative, Meredith, had handed me a thick packet. The title page read, "Job Description, Senior Compliance Archivist and Technical Support Specialist." It was a pay cut of 30%, and my duties were reduced to scanning old invoices and scheduling Julian's meetings. I felt a cold knot of anger in my chest, but I did not let it show. I had a mortgage to pay, and my mother was in Shady Oaks Memory Care Center, which cost more than Julian probably spent on his sports car. If I quit, the company health insurance would vanish, and my mother's medical expenses would bankrupted my family. Donald Beck knew this. He knew I was trapped by my responsibilities, which was why he felt safe demoting me. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. "Julian is asking for the root admin passwords to the core servers. He says he wants to audit user privileges. Walter, he does not even know how to navigate a terminal. What should I do?" My first instinct was to run to the server room and lock the console to save them from themselves. But then I looked at the archivist job description. Duty number 4. Maintain accurate records of all operational protocols and certification documents. I typed back to Daniel, give him the passwords, document the request, send it to him in an email and copy me. And Daniel, do not fix any of his mistakes unless he explicitly instructs you to do so in writing. I put the phone down and turned to the stack of cardboard boxes in the corner. They were labeled old records, files Donald had dumped there years ago. I ripped the tape off the first box. Inside were dusty binders. FEMA Rebuild Grant 2011, State Critical Infrastructure Filings, Hazardous Material Protocols. I pulled out the FEMA binder. In 2011, the facility had received a $2 million federal grant to upgrade the backup generators. I flipped to page 4, the compliance clause. It was written in bold print. Grant eligibility is contingent upon the continuous employment and direct oversight of a state-licensed Level 4 infrastructure operator who must be designated as the primary point of responsibility. Any change in key personnel must be reported to the Federal Oversight Committee within 72 hours, potentially triggering an immediate audit and clawback of all grant funds. I ran my finger over the signature at the bottom, Walter Hastings. I opened the next binder, which contained the insurance policy for the hospital servers. Clause 14b. Continuity of expertise. The insured facility guarantees that all critical safety and power continuity systems are under the direct, daily supervision of a certified operator with a minimum of 10 years of experience in high-availability environments. Signature, Walter Hastings. I sat back in my chair. They had not just demoted me. They had violated the legal foundation of their entire business. Donald thought my license on the wall was just a decoration. He did not realize it was the load-bearing beam. He wanted me to do paperwork, so I was going to do the paperwork. I was going to read every line of fine print in this closet and map the liability they had built for themselves. By Wednesday afternoon, Julian's optimization plan began. I was scanning old invoices when the floor began to vibrate. It was the weekly test cycle for the backup generators. Every Wednesday at 2 p.m., the systems automatically spooled up the diesel engines. But after only 3 minutes, the vibrations stopped abruptly. I waited for the automated cool-down cycle. Nothing. I grabbed my radio, then remembered my new role. I set it down and sat on my hands. Do not interfere. 5 minutes later, Daniel burst into my office, pale and sweating. "He shut it off," Daniel gasped. "Who?" "Julian. He walked out to the generator yard and hit the emergency stop on generator 3 while it was running. He said the noise was disrupting his conference call with the investors. He told me we do not need weekly tests, that once a month is enough to save on diesel fuel." My blood ran cold. "Daniel, if you emergency stop a heavy diesel under load without a cool-down cycle, you can warp the cylinder heads. If the engines do not run weekly, the seals dry out and the fuel separates. That generator is offline now." "I told him that," Daniel yelled. "He told me to stop being a mechanic and start being a visionary." I looked at Daniel. "Go back to the console. Open an incident ticket. Document exactly what happened. Director Julian Beck executed an emergency manual stop on generator 3 during active load test to reduce noise. Potential thermal damage unassessed. Routine maintenance schedule canceled by director order. Do it now." Daniel ran out. This was not just incompetence, it was gross negligence. Under the Texas Health and Safety Code, operating a critical infrastructure facility without maintaining the backup power standards for a hospital is a major violation. I picked up my office phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. It was Roger Finch, the facilities manager for the regional hospital network. "Apex Data Solutions, this is the archives," I said. "Walter?" Roger's voice was surprised. "What are you doing in the archives? I thought you ran that place." "Just a corporate transition, Roger. Julian Beck is the new director of operations. I am updating our contact logs. I wanted to let you know that all automated alerts regarding generator health and temperature variances will be routed directly to Julian now. Since I am in a non-operational role, I will no longer be verifying the alarms before they reach you." Silence on the line. "You are not verifying the alerts?" Roger asked. "No, I am strictly handling documentation now. Julian is streamlining our processes. He is reducing the generator test cycles to save fuel." Another long silence. "He is canceling the weekly load tests." Roger's voice grew sharp. "It is part of his sustainability profile. Have a great day, Roger." I hung up. I had just lit the fuse. The hospital network could not afford a single second of downtime, and Roger was not going to let this slide. By Friday, the data center felt like a pressure cooker. The temperature in the main server halls was rising. Julian had changed the target temperature from 68 degrees to 78 degrees to cut electricity costs. The servers were spinning their fans at maximum speed, creating a high-pitched scream that echoed through the corridors. Julian walked around with noise-canceling headphones, completely oblivious. I was in my closet scanning invoices when Donald Beck walked in. He looked hot and was wiping sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. "Hot in here, Walter," he said, sitting on the edge of my folding table. "It is 78 degrees, Donald." "Physics does not negotiate," I replied. Right. Julian is adjusting the cooling loops. It will settle down. Listen, we have a minor administrative issue. The state certification for our Halon fire suppression system is due today, and the insurance renewal needs a certified master operator signature. I need you to sign these forms. Slits a stack of papers across the table. I looked at the top document. It was a formal attestation to the state fire marshal that the Halon suppression system had been inspected and was fully operational. "The system Julian almost tripped over with a ladder?" I asked. "He did not trip. Look, we need this filed by 5 p.m. or the county pulls our occupancy permit. Julian's certification is still pending with the state board." I knew Julian's certification was not pending. He had not even taken the exam. "You want me to sign this as the responsible operator?" I asked, holding the pen. "Yes, just for this quarter. You still have the license. Help us out for old time's sake. We are family here, Walter." I looked at the signature line. If I signed this document and a fire occurred, and the Halon system failed, because Julian had canceled the maintenance contract, I would be held criminally liable. Under Texas Penal Code Section 3221, signing a regulatory document under false pretenses is forgery, a state jail felony. It would also constitute a violation of Texas Administrative Code Title 37, Part 1, Chapter 34, governing fire prevention licensing. They were asking me to commit perjury to cover Julian's incompetence. "I need to review these files," I said, putting the pen down. Donald's smile tightened. "Don't be difficult, Walter. The investors are coming on Monday. We need a clean dashboard, Have them on my desk by 4 lung. He walked out. I immediately logged into the accounting database. Since I was the one who set up the system, they had forgotten to revoke my access. I searched for the fire protection vendor, Safety First Inc. Their status was listed as canceled. A note from Julian read, "Vendor too expensive, canceled contract, switching to Jim's Fire and Lawn for bundled facility services." Julian had hired a local landscaper to maintain a $1 million chemical gas suppression system. If I signed that attestation, I was committing fraud. I took a red marker, drew a line through the signature box, and wrote, "Refused, not responsible operator." I did not sign it. Instead, I shredded the document. But I needed to protect myself. I opened my personal email and drafted a message to the Texas State Fire Marshal's office. "Whom it may concern, I am writing to formally update my employment status at Apex Data Solutions. As of Tuesday, I have been reassigned to an administrative role and no longer have operational authority or daily supervision over the facility's life safety systems. Please remove my license, Walter Hastings, TX 77402, from the facility's active compliance registry immediately." I hit send. That email was a tactical nuke. The State Fire Marshal's office does not tolerate facilities operating without a licensed supervisor. Once my license was removed, a 72-hour countdown would begin. If Apex could not provide another Level 4 operator, the state would shut down the data center. I walked out to the server yard. The air was thick and hot. I entered the main control room. The console keyboard was dusty. I pulled a tube of industrial adhesive from my pocket and squeezed a small amount into the USB ports, rendering them useless for physical admin overrides. Then I walked back to my office. The trap was set. On Sunday evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Roger Finch. "Walter, we need to talk. Off the record. Waffle House on Highway 99. 6 left a.m. tomorrow." I replied with a simple, "I will be there." I sat on my porch that night, smoking a cigarette, watching the warning lights blink on the high-tension towers in the distance. They were steady, reliable, and predictable. Everything my job had been before Donald Beck decided to play Family Dynasty. I was not going to sabotage their servers. I did not have to. In our industry, complexity is a beast. If you do not feed it, if you do not respect it, it will eat you alive. Julian thought he was a disruptor. Tomorrow, he was going to find out what real disruption looked like. At 6 a.m. on Monday, the Highway 99 Waffle House was nearly empty. The air smelled of burnt coffee and bacon grease. Roger Finch was sitting in a corner booth. Next to him was a woman in a sharp gray suit with an analytical expression. "Walter," Roger said, gesturing to the seat across from him. "This is Vivian Stone. She represents TexCore Infrastructure, a private equity fund that manages regional utilities." I sat down and ordered a black coffee. Vivian did not waste time with pleasantries. "Mr. Hastings," Roger tells me, "you are the only reason the regional hospital network did not lose their database continuity during the winter freeze. We are building a new Tier 4 data facility 5 miles from the Apex site. We break ground next month, but we have a problem. We need an experienced operation director who knows the local grid and how to manage the emergency systems." Roger leaned forward. "Walter, I know what is happening at Apex." After our call, I checked our service level agreement. Section 12.4 requires Apex to maintain a named Level 4 licensed operator on site. If you are not in that role, they are an immediate material breach. I have already instructed our legal team to draft the termination notice. We cannot risk our patient records on an MBA's learning curve. Vivian slid a paper folder across the table. "We are prepared to offer you the position of Director of Infrastructure Operations at TexCore. Your starting salary will be $145,000 with full operational autonomy. No family members, no golf buddies. You write the specs, we sign the checks. And you can bring your lead tech, Daniel and Clara, from billing. Roger tells me they are the ones who keep the lights on with you." I opened the folder. The salary was 40% higher than what Donald had paid me at my peak. "I have one condition," I said. "My mother is at Shady Oaks Memory Care. Donald was covering her corporate discount. If I leave, the rate doubles." Vivian smiled, a thin, professional expression. "TexCore owns the parent company of Shady Oaks. We will place her on our executive family registry. Her care will be fully covered by the company." I felt the tightness in my chest finally dissolve. "I accept," I said, "but I cannot start next month." I need to start tomorrow. Why tomorrow? Roger asked. Because today is the quarterly investor meeting at Apex, I replied, a cold grin spreading across my face. And I want to be standing outside when the walls come down. I drove to the data center at 8:30 a.m. The parking lot was filled with luxury rental cars. The Austin investors had arrived. In the lobby, Donald Beck was pacing, adjusting his silk tie and sweating. Julian was wearing a tailored suit, looking nervous but trying to appear confident. Walter, Donald grabbed my arm. Did you sign the fire marshal certification? It is on my desk, Donald, I said. The shredded pieces were indeed on my desk. Good, good. Listen, we need you in the conference room. If the investors ask any technical questions Julian gets stuck on, just jump in smoothly. Show them we have everything under control. Smoothly, I agreed. The conference room was packed. The investors, a group of venture capital partners who looked like they had never held a screwdriver, sat on one side of the mahogany table. Donald and Julian sat on the other. I took my place in a support chair at the back of the room. Julian stood up and loaded his slide deck. The first slide read, Apex Data Solutions, Optimizing Legacy Infrastructure. Gentlemen, Julian began, his voice slightly higher than usual. Welcome to the future. Over the last week, we have implemented a series of operational efficiencies that have reduced our cooling energy consumption by 15%. One of the investors raised his hand. I looked at the system metrics this morning. Your inlet temperature is reading 79 degrees. Dell's warranty for those legacy racks voids at 80 degrees. Isn't that a high risk? Julian froze, his eyes darting to me. I smiled, took a slow sip of my coffee, and said nothing. Julian stammered. That is a calibration error. We are upgrading the sensors next week. What about generator maintenance? Another investor asked. Your fuel expenses dropped. Have you reduced the test cycles? We are running smarter, targeted tests, Julian said, a bead of sweat rolling down his cheek. The conference room door swung open. It was not the catering service. A man in a blue windbreaker with a gold badge stepped into the room. It was Chief Higgins, the state fire marshal. Behind him stood Roger Finch and a process server holding a stack of legal documents. Donald Beck, Chief Higgins barked. Donald stood up, his face losing its color. Yes, we are in the middle of a private presentation. I am shutting this facility down, Chief Higgins said, tossing a red notice on the table. We received formal notification that your licensed operator has withdrawn. You are operating a critical infrastructure facility without a certified Level 4 supervisor on site. Under Texas Administrative Code, you have 0 minutes to comply. Power down the non-essential systems immediately. The silence in the conference room was absolute. The investors stared at the red shutdown notice, then at Donald Beck, then at each other. Donald walked around the table, his hands trembling. Chief Higgins, there is a misunderstanding, a clerical error. Walter Hastings, our certified operator, is right here. Walter, tell him you are still supervising the floor. It is just a minor title adjustment. I stood up and smoothed my shirt. Actually, Donald, I am not, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the room. My new job description, which Julian wrote and you signed last Tuesday, explicitly designates me as the Senior Compliance Archivist. My duties are strictly administrative. I have no operational authority, I cannot oversee safety systems, and I cannot legally act as your operator of record. To represent myself as such to the fire marshal would be forgery under Texas Penal Code Section 32.21, and I refuse to commit a felony for this company. Chief Higgins turned to Donald. Do you have another Level 4 licensed operator on site, Mr. Beck? Donald looked at Julian. Julian, you took the online course, right? You have the credentials? Julian's face turned the color of spoiled clay. I watched the training videos, but the state website was down when I tried to register for the exam. The website was down, Chief Higgins repeated, his voice cold. You are hosting the county 911 dispatch and a regional hospital network, and your operational backup is that a website was down. This facility is unsafe. Roger Finch stepped forward, placing a blue folder next to the fire marshal's notice. This is a formal notice of material breach of our service agreement. Apex Data Solutions has failed to maintain the required continuity of expertise under Section 12.4. We are terminating our contract for cause, effective immediately. Our data migration to TexCore's new facility is already 95% complete. The lead investor stood up, packing his laptop. Donald, our funding is contingent on compliance and client retention. Since you have lost your primary client and are under a state shutdown order, we are withdrawing our investment immediately. Expect a call from our legal counsel regarding the misrepresentation of your operational status. The investors filed out of the room, leaving Donald and Julian standing in the wreckage of their ambition. Chief Higgins looked at his watch. You have 1 hour to safely shut down your servers before we cut the main breaker at the utility pole. If you do not comply, we will lock the doors and execute an emergency disconnect. Donald turned on me, his face red with fury. You did this, he snarled. After 15 years, you sabotaged my business, you ungrateful snake. I did not sabotage anything, Donald, I said, my voice calm and even. I did exactly what you asked. I did the paperwork. I documented every decision Julian made. I logged the emergency stop on Generator 3. I archived the cancellation of the fire safety contract and the hiring of a landscaping service to maintain our halon system. You thought my license was just a piece of paper on the wall. You forgot that in this business, credibility is not bought, it is earned. You wanted an archivist. I archived the end of your company. I walked out of the conference room and down the server hall one last time. The heat was thick and the fans were screaming at their limit. I met Daniel and Clara by the exit. They already had their boxes packed. Are we good, Walter? Daniel asked, a grin breaking through his tattoos. We are good, I said. TexCore is waiting for us. Daniel, you start as my lead technician tomorrow. Clara, you will run our administrative billing. Both of you are getting a 20% raise. We walked out of the building and into the bright Texas sun. Behind us, the lights in the lobby began to flicker, then went completely dark as the utility company cut the power. Apex Data Solutions was dead. It has been 3 months since that Monday. The building that used to house Apex is now a discount retail warehouse. They liquidated the servers for scrap metal. Donald Beck declared corporate bankruptcy, and his new truck was repossessed. Julian attempted to start a career as a motivational business influencer on social media, posting videos about grind set and optimization, but his channel averages about 15 views. One of them is me, watching from a burner account. As for me, I am sitting in the control room of TexCore 1. The air conditioning is a crisp 68 degrees. The server blades hum in perfect quiet harmony. The floors are immaculate. Daniel is managing the floor, and Clara has already migrated all our new clients without a single packet of data lost. We have absorbed 90% of Apex's former customer base. Yesterday, a young intern asked me what the secret to running a reliable facility was. I took a sip of my coffee, looked at the green lights on my monitoring screen, and smiled. Never let them turn you into paperwork, I said. And always know exactly where the manual kill switch is. The intern nodded, looking terrified. I went back to my screens. Everything was green. Everything was running. And for the first time in a very long time, I knew the lights would stay on.